Just talking musicals, musicals with you.
Hello, I'm Lesley Anne Knight and welcome to this final instalment of the Pajama Game story. In 1955, the Pajama Game arrived at the Coliseum in London's West End just a year after opening on Broadway. With its original cast still going strong in New York, Bobby Griffith directed the London production, with Bob Fosse's assistant Zoe Laporska reproducing the choreography. Comedian and actor Max Wall headlined the London cast, playing the role of the efficiency manager Hines. Australian singer and actress Joy Nichols, well known from the popular long-running radio series Take It From Here, took the role of Babe, and Canadian baritone Edmund Hockridge played Sid Sorokin and went on to take the song Hey There straight to the top of the UK charts. And taking the role made famous on Broadway by Carol Haney was a young, classically trained English dancer by the name of Elizabeth Seal, and the role of Gladys was set to have an equally impressive effect on her career as it had for both Haney and Shirley MacLaine. And then on Wednesday, the 30th of May 1956, Thomas Pryor of the New York Times reported in his arts column that Eddie Foy Jr., who is appearing on Broadway in the Pajama Game, will repeat his role as the Pajama Factory foreman in the movie edition of the musical, to be sponsored by Warner Brothers. Filming is tentatively set to begin in the early fall. And it was around that time that George Abbott wrote a letter to yet another of his former protégés, choreographer Stanley Donen, who just happened to be working as a freelance film director in Hollywood, and he invited Donen to co-direct the film with him. When Jack Warner set about producing the film of the Broadway show, it was with the proviso that there'd be a big star in the lead role. You could argue that Janice Page was a pretty big star by this time, having both Hollywood film credits and Broadway success to her name. But it seems Jack Warner had an even bigger name in mind: popular singer and film star Doris Day. So aside from Janice Page, nearly everything else about the production stayed just the same as it had on Broadway. Richard Adler recalled that when he arrived for his first day of work in Hollywood, he was a jumble of nerves. I was actually trembling as I approached the Warner Brothers lot on the first full morning of work. But once I was there, time seemed to collapse. My task was to train the ensemble and Doris Day, who was playing the Janice Page role. A mass of freckles and beauty and good spirits, she was a genuinely sweet person and a joy to work with. She had an agile mind and a sure musical sense, and teaching the songs to her was a breeze. When the film premiered on 29th of August 1957, Bosley Crowther of the New York Times reported, "If ever a musical comedy has been plucked off the Broadway stage and recreated as a movie with scarcely a passage or a principal performer changed, it is George Abbott's and Stanley Donen's production of the Pajama Game, which swept like a pack of noisy pickets into the music hall yesterday." Now, there have been some notable stage revivals over the years, both in New York and London, with standout productions from the 2006 sizzling box office hit produced by the Roundabout Theatre Company, led by director and choreographer Kathleen Marshall, starring Kelly O'Hara and Harry Connick Jr., to Richard Eyre's splendid production with award-winning choreographer Stephen Mear, transferring from Chichester to the West End in 2014, with Tristram Kenton of The Guardian announcing Richard Eyre's joyous production of this 1954 musical effortlessly expands to fill the space. The detailed exuberance of the production is comparable to that of Richard Eyre's National Theatre Guys and Dolls. Praise indeed. Now, to add a personal note here, in 2013, I was lucky enough to be invited to write and present a TV series about the landmark Broadway musicals, and of course it featured the Pajama Game. And actress and dancer Elizabeth Seal was one of the original cast members I not only got to meet and interview, but I was also privileged to be invited to attend Richard Eyre's Chichester Festival Theatre production of the show with this wonderful lady. It was a joy to watch this revival alongside someone who had been such an integral part of the original London production, and the first to perform Fosse's iconic Steam Heat here in the UK. And of course, we got to share our impressions of this new production. Richard Eyre's show was fresh and brimming with energy, just like you'd expect from such a wonderful director. But there was one number we both felt should have stayed just as Fosse had created it, and that was steam heat. The original was so incredibly innovative, each dancer mimicking a piece of machinery, their bowler hats serving as pistons, the precision of their moves utterly hypnotic. This new version was steamy in a different way, and one we both felt kind of missed the point. In short, we really missed the Fosse moves. We didn't want change, we wanted it to be just like the original, just as Elizabeth knew it. And then I realised Kathleen Marshall had also changed the number to a more steamy routine on Broadway in 2006. When she was chosen to direct and choreograph the show, I've read she came to the conclusion that if the producers had wanted her to replicate Fosse's moves, they would have hired someone completely different. And in 2015, Stephen Mear pointed to the fact that if you show respect and replicate the original choreography, people then claim it's copying. And so in many ways, you just can't win. In 1954, the Pajama Game was modern and fresh, with songs written by budding talents who had already had success in the pop charts, and with innovative choreography created by a young, ambitious dancer led by two gifted first-time producers, each supported by figures at the top of their game on Broadway: Frank Loesser, Jerome Robbins and George Abbott. George Abbott was equally remarkable in the fact that he lived to the grand old age of 107, viewed holidays as a form of defeat, and even the week before he passed away in 1995 could be found dictating revisions for a revival of the Pajama Game.
He's 90 now. We still share an office in New York. He's written his first novel, just finished a script for a play that he's going to do, just finished a musical, a libretto, which I read. I mean, that's sort of the par activity for any given year from him.
When the show first opened in 1954, Gilbert Milstein of the New York Times wrote that, on the basis of sheer frightening volume alone, an easily defensible argument can be drummed up that no living individual, or possibly even dead, has contributed more to the Broadway theatre in the capacities of actor, director, producer, co-producer, author, co-author and play doctor than George Abbott. And don't forget, when that was written, he still had more than 40 years of work ahead of him. And then there's the lineup of talented individuals nurtured by Abbott, who in their turn contributed extraordinarily to the history of Broadway. Most notably, Bobby Griffith, Hal Prince, Jerome Robbins and Bob Fosse. Abbott and Prince famously shared an office in an Art Deco style building in Midtown Manhattan at 1 Rockefeller Plaza, and Prince stayed there in the years after his partnership with Abbott ended, going on to become a living legend in his own right, and much like his lifelong mentor, enjoyed not just an enviable career spanning 60 years, but won more Tony Awards than anyone in history while he was at it. Right, that's it. I hope you enjoyed our Pajama Game story. And we've plenty more landmark stories on the channel for you to explore, so if you haven't already, just tap subscribe to find out as soon as the next new story drops. I'm Lesley Anne Knight. Thanks again for watching, and see you soon.
Just talking musicals with you.